Navigating an SAP transformation? We get it. By day, we work hands-on with people like you across the globe. By night, we share what actually works. Welcome to Transformation Every Day with Alexander Greb and Johannes Langguth, where your complex transformation becomes clear, actionable, and achievable.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Alexander Greb. I am Consulting Director at CBS Corporate Business Solutions. And today's guest is one of my favorite people in the SAP universe, Wassilios Lolas, Global Vice President at SAP Signavio. In our conversation, we uncover how SAP's integrated toolchain, which is Signavio, LeanIX, and WalkMe, is redefining business transformation. Here, how process performance indicators uncover hidden inefficiencies, why almost 50% of executives picked the wrong technology, how real-time transparencies can take emotions out of tough conversations, and so much more about SAP's toolchain that is redefining how strategy is put into execution. Press play to discover why transformation isn't a project, it's a capability. Let's get started.
I was speaking at an event. I don't know if you know, but I'm fluent in Italian and in French.
I know English, Greek, Berlin
style, French as well, Italian. So
French and Italian.
Yeah. So we had the business.
Now it gets scary, guys.
No, that's all.
Yeah.
Yes. And I grew up in Berlin in the 1980s, so I can insult you in Turkish, but that's all. That's all I know. Yeah.
Necessarily, you do not really learn German in Berlin.
I did, but I also speak the Berlin dialect if needed.
That's, again, for insults, very, very helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I see I'm here now in absolutely minority because I basically have two Berlin people sitting in front of me. Me representing.
Alex, I'm not allowed to call myself a Berlin people. No, not anymore. I live in Potsdam now, Now with the family, you leave Berlin.
He lives in the posh part of Berlin.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. He outgrew Berlin, but to be honest, for me as a Bavarian, this is all the same. Everything which is the northern of the River Main. No, I'm even more radical. Northern of the River Danube is just Prussia, and that's it.
Yeah, the South place.
But gentlemen, we are recording, so we have to behave. We have Wassilios Lolas here, all-time fan favorite from so many events, podcasts, and so on. By the way, I do not want to behave. I want to start a little bit provocative. We are talking about today SAP's toolchain, Signavio, LeanIX, all that interesting stuff, which is, in my opinion, SAP's biggest innovation of the decade. Does this get me into trouble when I say this like that?
Actually, here's the thing. For over 50 years, SAP has been building software to make companies run better.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the shift in software that we did over the last few years, with S/4HANA, with RISE, with everything that we offered, this is a major, major impact that SAP is making. Now, again, for over 50 years, we were making software to help companies run better. We, until 5 years ago, did not make software to help them get better.
Which is true.
This is the business that was left and is still left and available and run by our partners. Yeah, many systems integrators, hundreds of thousands of consultants, all of them using no tools at all, or the most popular
their own tool,
or self-made tools. Yeah. The big consulting companies could do that. Yeah. Or the most popular of all, Excel, in order to basically run the entire transformation cycle. Yeah, and here now you come to one point where all of a sudden you find out that transformations were run as projects, and all too often they were run as IT projects or IT triggered projects. Yeah. So today we have 4.6c. We need to go to ECC. Yeah. We do an upgrade project. Yeah. We have ECC. We need to go to S4. We do an upgrade project, and never benefiting enough from the business impact that these technical innovations could have had. Yeah.
Vasi, you already said so many scary things, which could turn this episode into a Halloween episode for me already, because I'm getting major goosebumps now from all these IT-driven best practices. But Johannes, you're the CIO, the former CIO in this round. How do you see this from a customer perspective?
Well, I think, you can't really rely on, or my experience probably is not representative, because the way we ran projects was a little bit different. So we kind of had a very agile, fluid business IT organization. So that was probably not representative to how most of the companies approach it. But frankly, we spoke about or we started to speak about the Toolchain, and we were one of the first customers that adopted Signavio at scale.
Yep.
So we made kind of process as the leading dimension already. But you are right. I mean, what Wassilios just said is scary. It could be a Halloween episode indeed, because when I hear upgrade 4.6c to ECC, yeah, that's in these days that's scary if companies are still at this stage. But I believe it's critical to get more business involvement and shift away from classic IT driven projects. And in your opinion, Wassilios, what do you think about how can the Toolchain and especially process aspect make use of that? Like how should CIOs trigger that to avoid falling in the trap of an IT-led project?
Well, here's my first question: why do we start speaking about the Toolchain in the first place? Why is it the CIO that needs to trigger this? And if it's the CIO who needs to trigger this, you're very often in the defensive. Yeah. If the CIO perceives himself or herself as a true business enabler, and I know every CIO will say I'm a business enabler, but I mean a true business enabler, the first thing to do is to provide the business with the visibility and the transparency of how their business is running today. Every good manager will want to know this. And I know, I give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I was in Belgium. I spoke with the CFO, and she said, no, we have performance indicators. And I was like, you probably have key performance indicators, the KPIs that you use to steer your business. Yeah. Revenue, costs, turnover, maybe also some quality indicators, etc. But what you probably don't have is process performance indicators. So the question, the very granular question of how are my operations running, that then will result in something that gives me my key performance indicators. Yeah. And for the CIO, then the next question is, do I, as a CIO, provide the tools, the applications to support the business strategy, to support the achievement of the business objectives? And are these tools used in the proper way, in the way they are supposed to be used? These are questions that we are trying to answer with the Toolchain, amongst others, at the beginning.
I mean, Wassilios, if you say the first thing is like providing transparency, and I think that's a very management-driven view, right? I think, of course, every manager would say, I want transparency. I really want to know what's going on. I want KPIs. I want PPIs.
Yep.
I want all this. But let me ask provocatively, is it what the people want? Do all organizations really become fully transparent on what's going on? Is that an organizational thing or a management thing?
It will become an organizational thing, and you need it, because if you want to change, you need to win the hearts and the minds of the people. Yeah. I mean, even if you believe that you can push things top down, yeah, it will never work, or it will only work to some extent. You need to convince the people of why change is needed. And this is where the first part of the transparency starts. Yeah. So transparency and data allows you to build the story, allows you as a manager, yeah, to build the story both towards your superiors, your CEO or your supervisory board, and to your employees of why change is needed. Yeah. But this is only half the story. The other half of the story is you need not only to show them why change is needed, but also where the change will go to. Yeah. So transparency also means what will the future look like? And it also means in a collaborative way to give people the possibility to bring in their ideas or to express their concerns. Yeah. So to me, transparency are these three things: transparency of the current situation, why we need to change, and also maybe why we do not need to change. That's equally important. Yeah. Where will we change to? And also give people the possibility to contribute and to collaborate and to bring in their ideas and their fears.
Maybe a possible difference for the area where you are active, in contrast, for example, where the ERP guys are, or CX or so, where a new development for them is basically about giving additional capabilities, while you you offer something which is about unlearning certain things, bad habits.
Mhm.
And this, of course, is the adoption in an area like this looks, of course, completely different. Yeah, because it's not about additional stuff, which is maybe sometimes easily justifiable. But as Johannes said, is this actually always wanted? Yeah, because transparency means that I'm now, for example, I'm a manager and I'm quite mediocre and my area is mediocre and so on. And I can hide this, yeah, behind certain things, because many companies are just output oriented. And now suddenly with process management, things get also oriented. How do you run? Yeah. How do you achieve that? And as such, may uncover inefficiencies which were not seen before. Yeah.
You're opening
Can be painful.
It can be
Absolutely.
painful. And you're opening a can of worms. And here is where you get into the really difficult part. All too often, I see in transformation projects that are IT driven or IT related, that it's not even the most important thing in the world. Yeah. So you go to a company that that does manufacturing and has, I don't know, 10, 15 factories. Yeah. For the head of the factory, what really keeps him awake at night is how to get the products onto the trucks and off the yard. Yeah. And IT for him is just a mini little part. Yeah. And all too often you will hear, no, if we do this change, it will prohibit me of working well, and I cannot anymore guarantee that I will be able to produce the stuff and get it off the yard. Yeah. And indeed, if things are not performant, so to say, uncovering inefficiencies can be nasty. Yeah. Here is where top management plays a major role in two dimensions. One dimension is trust and well-being, while at the same time being demanding. So what I mean is, um, top management must create an atmosphere where it's clear that performance is requested and required and demanding, but at the same time that, let's say, punishment is not too arbitrary or too crazy. Um, all too often, you spoke about bad habits, Alex. Yeah, all too often, things are not good or not performant because of history, because of limitations that existed in the past and were always continued and never changed. And I'm certain that even if you have low performing factories, for example, they will tell you what they believe should be changed. where the improvements could come from. But you never have, or very often do not have, the basis of data, of facts, to make a fact-based decision on this and to prioritize. And I give you just one example of one of our customers. They have multiple factories in Europe. Amongst others, they have 2 factories outside of Paris. They did a process analysis. They showed the process analysis to the factory heads, and the meeting started with everybody being defensive and saying, everything is fine here. I don't have a problem. Look to the other guy. Yeah. But then when they put the process models on the table, they found out not only that one factory in some areas was more performant than the others, but also the reason why, because they had 19 more process steps to achieve the same result. And what then happened is what my customer said: data takes emotions out of the conversation. And I like this a lot. Data takes emotions out of the conversation, because then the conversation turned into twofolds. Number one is the lower performing factory was not able to hide anymore. But secondly, they also got a solution, or at least a path to the solution. And they looked at their peers and they were like, wow, how are you doing this? Yeah. And why are we so complicated? Again, this is the ideal world. If you use this to only punish people, you will never get into transformation, because people will be hiding only. Yeah.
I think you touched an interesting point on what makes transformation successful, right? Like being transparent, having a change-driven mindset, while at the same time, with all being demanding, at the same time being forgiving. It's kind of you outline the balances of a successful transformation. Why are some transformations collapsing silently, from your perspective?
I think if you had to ask me for one reason, I would say it's because there is no sponsor, or because the sponsor is losing interest. So, one thing that we should never underestimate is transformations typically are touching many parts of the business. Yeah. Um, if I'm a manager of a small team, I can do changes and improvements within my team, but that's not really a transformation. This is an improvement. If we talk about transformation, we speak about something that will impact big parts of the company, or maybe even the entire company. And you can do this only when you build the organizational foundations for this. And this is something that almost always is driven, or at least sponsored, by top management. And when top management is not there, is not interested, is not focused, then this is when it collapses.
Then let me ask this question like that. Do you think, concerning that point, the actual economic situation that we have, industries are highly under pressure, disruptions are happening, political weirdnesses are coming up? In theory, this should support this kind of awareness.
Mhm.
That suddenly top management realizes, hey, we are not in boom times anymore, where you can grow if you just are able to get stuff out of your warehouse. But this may be something where we have to change our business models. We've talked yesterday about the automotive industry, where especially automotive suppliers try to get out of that specialization, because that's seen almost toxic by some analysts. In the meantime, they try to diversify, get into new businesses. This is pure strategy and pure CEO stuff, what's happening there. Yeah. So shouldn't be those tools more or less basic equipment of any CEO who wants to proceed forward?
What is the answer to uncertainty? The answer to uncertainty is agility. So, what we are giving the companies with these tools is the possibility to become agile by identifying the inefficiencies, by identifying the areas which are blocking or hindering, etc. Yeah. So therefore, to your question, I believe that these challenging times are times where our offering is what is needed for companies to become more agile and to be able to act upon the unexpected things that are coming. Yeah. And I mean, I don't even know when times have not been challenging. Yeah. So you take the last 5 years, right? So tariffs. Before this, wars in various parts of the world, a ship that cannot go straight through the Suez Canal, coronavirus. Before this, so there is a lot of disruption, and I mean, we have not even started talking about AI. Yeah, so um, from my perspective, agility and the adaptability is absolutely key for any business. Um, with varying degrees by industry. Yeah, but this is absolutely required, and this is where we as SAP Business Transformation Management provide our customers with the possibility to be agile and to be flexible.
So if the answer is more or less the same to any disruption and to any challenge, why are we still so slow in adopting that?
I think for two reasons. The one is that um, for the this sounds very great here. For the first time in history, there is an integrated tool chain that is covering the areas of business, IT, people, and data. Yeah, which we at SAP believe is required holistically in order to run such a transformation. This is the one thing. The second reason I believe is that the need to change and the speed of change is augmenting dramatically compared to, I don't know, 20 years ago. Yeah. And again, this is different from industry to industry. Before joining SAP in 2008, I was working for Lafarge, a building materials company. They have a they have a they at the time they had a roofing materials business. In UK, the most successful roof tile was called the 49er. And it was called the 49er because it was introduced to the market in 1948. Yeah. Try to explain this to somebody who's, I don't know, in our industry today. Yeah.
Not so sure if some process definitions of our customers are actually much younger.
Could be. Yeah. Could be. That's a classic one. You go to a customer in one of these upgrade projects and you ask, show me your process models. And they're like, yeah, here's the blueprint from 20 years ago when we implemented the system. Yeah.
We should have put some dramatic music when you said it's the first time in history. I think maybe
I
we
can
do
do
that in
that
the
in
post.
post.
But yeah, post. Yeah, it needs to.
I do that.
There needs to be some dramatic
Wassilios
music.
will be the first guest who gets a drum roll.
Thank you.
But we spoke about now that we mentioned the word toolchain. You said what it is about, but can you speak about the toolchain itself? What is this? What's behind?
So,
Sounds like a password.
as you know, I hate starting by tools, and I will not do this. I will start by how I believe, or how we at SAP believe that a transformation should be run, and then we speak about the tools that support this. Yeah, we believe that in every transformation starts with a link to the company strategy. Yeah, what is it that I, as a company, want to achieve? And this, of course, is influenced by what I have today, what my market environment is, what my customers want, etc., etc. Yeah. And once I know this, the first question I need to ask myself is, where do I stand today, and how am I doing today? So in our world, this means three things. It means, how are my operations today, and are they supporting my company objectives and my company goals? And of course, I need to look at. I need to ask my question. I need to ask myself the question of, do I have any broken processes? Yeah. But I also need to ask my question, even if my processes are perfect, are they supporting my future strategy? Yeah. Go back to Kodak in 2000. They had excellent processes for producing and developing films. Yeah. Unfortunately, nobody wants films today. Yeah. Think of
Except my wife. Just I had to say that.
and
We still
and my 20-year-old son who's a nerd. Yeah. But yes. Yeah. Think of SAP 10 years ago. Yeah. We had excellent operations for on-premise business, and still we had to change. Yeah. By the way, just a little parenthesis, SAP was one of the biggest Signavio customers before we acquired the company. And the person who introduced Signavio into SAP was the then COO, Christian Klein, because he knew as a COO that he cannot support the transformation of SAP without a proper tool set. And this is why SAP bought Signavio as a vendor at the time. So, which, by the way, also means the safest way to become CEO of a company is to buy Signavio, just as an information for the people who are listening in. So the first step is to understand where you stand today and to take your decisions about what processes do I need to change, what processes will I keep. Same thing on the IT side. What business capabilities do I need in order to achieve my business goals? And what applications, what IT capabilities do I have? Are they supporting these business capabilities that then will support my strategic goals? And then the last question that I need to ask myself is, even if I have all the IT applications, how are they used? Are they used in the proper way? So this is the first step. Yeah, this first step is really about understanding where I stand today and whether I'm doing well or not. Talking about the tool chain, yeah, SAP Signavio to analyze and understand the processes, SAP LeanIX to understand your current application landscape, and WalkMe to understand your current usage. And by the way, not only the processes that run through SAP systems, not only your SAP landscape, but your entire application landscape, because no company in the world is a pure SAP shop. Even SAP has hundreds of non-SAP applications. And by the way, this is also the reason why SAP has invested over 4 billion euros in the last 5 years to build up this business transformation management area. Going beyond SAP, because we know that transformations are not just in SAP systems and not just for the SAP landscape. Yeah, and we were looking around. We had when it came only to analyzing processes that run through SAP, we had our own tools like, well, you know very well, the BSR or Pathfinder, which my team had been developing. But again, we needed the capability to give to our customers the capability to analyze end-to-end processes. And same for the landscape. We have with Solution Manager and later on Cloud ALM, we have super powerful tools for the SAP world, but we needed more than that. So this was
But to interrupt you,
yes,
because you said so many things which are so fantastic in that way, that in the beginning already, when you open your sentences with, it has to be, and you said it like it was almost natural. Yeah, IT has a purpose, and the purpose is more or less to make strategy happening. Yeah, to
yes,
execute strategy. I think this is already the first problem which is existing. Yeah, because this connection, which should be natural, happening everywhere, is not always happening everywhere. I would also even say, in the majority, you do not have this one-to-one connection. Yeah, because why? How was it in the past time? Either, like we said in the beginning in our small horror show, implementations were seen as upgrades, seen as, the typical stuff. If you were ambitious, yeah, you then, for example, and you wanted to connect strategy to your IT, then first you probably spend a lot of money to get one of the very expensive Mackeys consultancies who then made some really interesting stuff, but in many cases, did they leave when they left? A bunch of documentation, yeah, slides, paper, whatever. So you had your first major media break between what's in there and then where you had to start basically from zero to execute it and make that into an IT strategy. Now, and this is in my case one of the first big advantages that you have. You really can, be it in Jira, be it anywhere else, you can take your strategic definitions, yeah, and you can use them, you can import them, you can already use that to build up your capabilities to set the field clear, your map, where you then have to compare your processes to, does this fit or does this not fit? Was this kind of integration and this kind of seamless process within the architecture world, was this planned, or did this come more or less later on by saying like, hey, we have so many great tools now and capabilities and applications. This is a big difference.
It was natural because, again, IT, and I hope CIOs will not shoot me for that, but there is no purpose in IT as such, I believe. Yeah, IT
It's a
is
supporting function.
a supporting function. Yeah.
Yeah.
So therefore, and on the other side, nothing works without IT. Yeah. Like nothing works without other machinery or tools, if you like.
If you do a merger and acquisition, it does not happen if it's not 100%
Correct.
built in your IT. Yeah.
So therefore, it was, we started actually with the process world in mind. This is where we started, and this was also the first acquisition, if you like, yeah, with Signavio. But it became very early, very clear that if you want to change your processes, you also need to change the tool set that is supporting these processes, the applications that are supporting these processes. And it was also very clear from very early on that, as said before, we need to look at end-to-end processes, and therefore we also need to look at the end-to-end supporting tools and tool chain. And this is why, when was it, 1.5 years later, the decision was made to acquire LeanIX. Yeah. And again, we go with this, we go beyond the pure SAP world. Yeah. Because that's what our customers are also doing. Yeah. And then came the question, also, it was already in the SAP world about how to drive the adoption. Yeah. I give you an example, and you spoke about habits and about bad old habits. Yeah. I give you an example. When we developed Process Insights, which is one of the process analysis tools that we have, which is a plug-and-play solution, our first customer was, of course, SAP. So we went to Prague to our shared service center, and we analyzed some of the processes. And we came up for one process with about 35% of manual work. And we showed this to management, and management is like, the numbers are wrong. And we're like, what do you mean? And he says, well, we automated this process 6 months ago. And we said, yes, but that's what the data says, 35% automation. He says, no, you don't understand. There's not even a user interface anymore. And we're like, still the data says 35% automation. So when we started digging and analyzing, we found out that indeed 6 months earlier, they had automated the process. Everybody was happy, champagne, high five, etc. But the project team was afraid that if something goes wrong, it would go wrong very badly. So they built a backdoor, a fallback solution that would allow to enter these orders manually and not through the full automation.
And an Excel export.
No, it was actually manually. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and guess what? So 6 months later, yeah, this backdoor had become a highway. Yeah. And of course, the people in the shared service center knew about it because they were using it all day, but management did not know. Yeah. So what is the root cause? And now I come back to what I said much, much earlier about winning the hearts and minds and involving the people. Yeah. The root cause was that when they did their process redesign, they did not consider all possible variations, yeah, and all possible cases. And once they understood these possible cases that they were not covered by the new automation, they knew that they had either to change the very, very beginning of the process, which unfortunately was outside of their silos, so they couldn't, yeah, or they had to do something manually. Yeah. So when you want to run a successful transformation, you need to give people the voice and the possibility to address these concerns. The second thing very often, it was not the case there, but the second thing very often is, I don't even know how to use this new thing. Yeah. Please don't give me the new process and the new user interface and 300 pages of documentation and tell me to read it. Yeah. And from an SAP perspective, I now switch heads and I speak as an SAP executive. Yeah? From an SAP perspective, the adoption of the new SAP solutions are crucial to our success as a company. Yeah. And they're crucial to the success of our customers. So the easier we can make it for them to adopt, the better it is. And this was one of the reasons of acquiring WalkMe, because WalkMe helps the user in his environment or her environment, yeah, while the user is working on the screen with on-screen support. It's not look at the video or read the manual. It's really, what is it you want to do? Look, you do it like this, like this, like this, like this. A nice side effect, by the way, is the standardization of processes. Yeah. A nice side effect of WalkMe is that people will work then in the standard way because this is what they have been taught, and they do not need to find out themselves or continue working in their old way of working.
You spoke a lot about the possibilities and capabilities of the toolchain, but I want to go back to something that you said a couple of minutes ago. It's kind of, you said when running the transformation, you need to start looking from where you stand. I think that was even the quote that I just noted down. I want to be a little bit provocative, Wassilios. Is that really the right approach? Should you really start from where you stand and not and not rather start from where you want to go? So set the ambition without being hindered and limited by all the pitfalls that might exist in the company, to think freely where you really want to be. So provocative question, should you really start from where you stand?
So the thing that I said before, I hope, is company strategy. Company strategy is where I want to be. Yeah. And this analysis of where I am today, I'm always doing against the where I want to be. Yeah. So it's not free floating. Yeah. Now I have customers who say, I don't care about what my processes look like today. I know they're bad. Yeah. Just give me the good thing. Yeah. And Johannes, I know because of your background in a very, 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 very fast growing company, yeah, startup, there were no limitations or very, very few limitations. But for many, many companies, they start with a big backpack, yeah, and of things that they cannot change fast or dramatically fast because they would blow up the business of their customers. Yeah. So therefore, the question of where I stand today and how am I doing, I believe is crucial. And again, for some companies that are very, very free in doing whatever they want, it's less important. For other companies, it's more important.
Yeah, I mean, You spoke about so many things now that the toolchain, with a view of where you stand, can bring, but that must be especially for I just want to use the words traditional companies, established companies, so not the fast growing one that I've been exposed to probably. Um, so what does that mean for those companies? How does the role of the IT or even the CIO, how does that change if they are now making use of such a tool chain? That must be a dramatic change impact for them as well, isn't it?
Let's not forget one thing. The key preoccupation of the CIO is to make things work and run. If I call a CIO today and ask him what keeps you awake at night, probably his answer is that nothing blows up. Yeah. And then his second preoccupation is to change things. Yeah. And to become. And we will speak, by the way, it was the first of 4 steps that I wanted to mention. So we're still in the analysis step, yeah, in the first one. But it changes the role of IT in the sense that it will have to become not only the enabler of business, but also the facilitator of change. And now, to be very, very honest with you, it is a completely different IT, and I don't even think that IT is the word for that department. So we will speak a little bit later about this, but when I look at companies that are successfully transforming, the setup that they have chosen is not an IT-centric setup. In that setup, IT is just a part, but it's not in the driver's seat, to be very honest and transparent. Yeah.
Let's zoom into this. How does the organization, the modern organization, look like
So
that
what?
makes transformation successsly? Sorry, now
Oh,
you
yeah,
brought it up.
absolutely.
Let's
I give you, you
let's
pick
jump
up the
into it,
ball, and that's good. So my view is, or my experience is, companies that drive transformation successfully, they drive this holistically with a small expert team. What does that mean? Typically, they have a small team, and small means something between 3 and 8 people. Yeah. A small team of experts who are experts, maybe 1 or 2 people are tool experts. Yeah. They know the tools very well. They collaborate with IT, who then know the source systems very well. So 1, 2 analysts, yeah, and then a bunch of people who are good project managers and change managers and who need to facilitate the discussions across the silos. Then, in the various departments, in the various silos, you will have people who remain in their silos. They are business experts of their respective business, but also interested in process or interested in enterprise architecture, and are collaborating as a community, facilitated by the central team, in order to run the analysis, understand where the issues are, come up with proposals of how to do better, etc., etc. Yeah. This is, however, not enough. You need to have one level higher, where you can ask for budgets, or you can escalate, especially in cases where issues that you have identified or changes that you want to make span across multiple departments or across multiple silos.
What you're saying, Wassilios, is very much a kind of a federated IT, right? It's kind of spread in a federated governance or organizational evolution that is not driven by one central person, but rather a fragmented, federated way of or pieces within the organization. How does this work for industries that are very much focused on making low margins, unit economics is small, so companies that really have to drive efficiency, and I'm not saying effectiveness, but really efficiency of what they are doing in a very straightforward top-down way. So is the federated model I would say, the solution for everything, or do you see variations of it, so to speak?
So it's the federated model. It's not federated IT. Yeah. But I had not finished. Now comes the next level, which I don't see in all companies. Yeah. Which is really the level of global process ownership, where typically you would have somebody who's quite high in management and who is responsible for an end-to-end process. It's not his main job. Yeah. It's not his main job. His main job is factory head. His main job is sales head, regional, whatever. But it's a person that understands the business very well, is very regarded amongst his peers, yeah, and is high enough to be able to bring peers, his peers together and say, okay, we need to resolve something. Typically, it's just the escalation path. Yeah. Now, Johannes, to your question, especially companies that need to be super efficient, I believe, need to be able to track their performance very, very closely, and will discover that inefficiencies in later stages of the process very often result from problems that are in earlier phases of the process, maybe in a completely different silo. Let me give you an example. Yeah, you look at an order to cash process, and you look at the invoicing, and you see that there's a lot of manual rework in the invoices. Yeah. Now, then you look further and you see that the reason for these manual invoices, manual reworks in the invoices, is bad master data. Yeah. Now, the problem is that the poor guy who has to correct the invoices is in the finance department, and the guy who made the mistake at the beginning, the master data, is in the sales department. Yeah. Completely different board areas. Probably also with completely different MBOs. Yeah. How do you, and this company must be super efficient. Yeah. You must have a way of getting the finance department to tell the sales department about the problems that they have because of errors or bad working created in the sales department. And you must have the possibility, if sales says, yeah, but I don't care because my MBOs are different, to bring this up and to escalate it to top management, who then can take the decision.
You touched an interesting point here. I think what you're speaking about is the micro versus macro optimization, right? Back in school days when you had the analysis, it's a local optimum,
Yes.
not a global optimum. So how do you balance this out, especially now that you have the tool chain? How do you orchestrate this change process towards a global optimum or a macro optimum? From your perspective?
Oof. We need to differentiate the question of whether I go top down or bottom up, so to say. Yeah. I come back to my question about the company strategy. If I change my business model, for example, which then will result into a macro change, yeah, I will ask myself the questions that I asked before about what business capabilities do I need, how should my process run, what IT support or applications do I need, etc. That's the one level. And or I say I want to go into a continuous optimization. Yeah? I want to change transformation from a project to a capability, to be able to continuously change and to instill in my organization the ability to constantly identify areas of doing better. Yeah. Whether you call it Kaizen or kontinuierlicher Verbesserungsprozess or whatever. Yeah. And of course, these two dimensions are not mutually exclusive. Yeah? But you can run, and I think you should think these two dimensions separately. Yeah?
I wonder when we stopped you or when I stopped you after your first step,
Yeah.
how we come back to the second one.
Okay, so let's come to the second step. So first step was how am I doing today, and is it good or bad? Yeah.
Exactly.
The second step is how do I want to work in the future? Yeah. So in the first step, I know what I want to keep and what I want to change. Yeah. Now, for the areas that I want to change and why, for the areas that I want to change, how should it be in the future? So this is where I start designing my future operations. I design my future processes. I design my future application landscape. And also I build the roadmap to get from the as is to the to be. The third step is, I'm now going through all the four, yeah, so that we can, the third step is then actually building this new future, the new processes, the new applications, having a very good understanding of the interdependencies, because you don't want to switch off one system and then hear somebody screaming at the end of the corridor, yeah. And then at some point you have the go live, and go live is not only the technical go live, but the rollout of the new way of working into the organization, including the support of the users. And then the mistake would be to stop there and to think, now we're done. Yeah, great, cool. Yeah. Then the part of the, let's say, continuous optimization starts, where you continuously monitor what value did I achieve? Did I achieve the objectives that I had set myself at the very beginning? Yeah. And if not, where do I need to do more or to fine tune or whatever? But also talking about bad old habits. Yeah. Are my new processes executed in the desired way also after 6 months, after 12 months? Yeah. Does my beautiful clean landscape look clean also after 6 months, after 12 months? Or do I see new applications popping up out of nowhere all of a sudden? Yeah. And last but not least, are my surroundings still the same? Yeah. Or has, I don't know, a virus popped up somewhere and turned our whole world upside down? Yeah, which is a dramatic thing, but also the less dramatic things. So the point I want to make is that, as said before, I know I'm repeating myself, transformation is not a project, transformation is a capability. Yeah? The ability to constantly question myself, question the way I'm working, and finding ways of adjusting, adopting, doing better.
This comes especially in handy when I look back at my past, when I had worked with a lot of big automotive companies, automotive OEMs, and you know them. What did they back then? They for transformations they made these huge templates, where they probably spent 2 or 3 years to define them, and then they were rolled out for 10 years. Yeah. 10 years later, the template was absolutely insufficient anymore because the company has changed, the business has changed, and so on and so on. So you never really reached that level that you wanted to achieve with that. Yeah. You could not really see, am I still on target? You could not manage that. And in the meantime, when you rolled out the template, so much other things were going on in your architecture that even the assumption, that finally with that template I'm integrated was wrong from the beginning. Yeah, because you could not react on that, because you could not manage that. Now with the tool chain, and I want in that, okay, you can of course discuss how far you want to extend the inclusion in that tool chain. I want to stop with Cloud ALM, for example, in that area, where you define your processes, you realize it, and so on, and then you have the possibility with Cloud ALM to not only implement but to manage it.
Correct.
And so on. Which is, by the way, what many of my CIOs I work with totally jump on. Because they say like, Signavio, that was a little bit voodoo for them in the beginning. Yeah, but with Cloud ALM, now we got them. Yeah, because that's finally where it comes handy for them and manageable. Do you think now that we have, with WalkMe and Cloud ALM and so on, all the white spots covered? Or are there still things where you say like, hey, we have to go deeper in these and those areas? We are not done yet.
While you were speaking, I was thinking about the fact that after 2 years of design of the template and 10 years of rollout, the guy who was the decision maker at the beginning probably is retired by now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Johannes, you asked me about why projects fail, and I said one of the reasons is that top management loses interest, or is not top management anymore. Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
Or retired.
Or retired.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The truth is that things are insanely complex. Yeah. So it's easy to say that agility is needed. The reality can be insanely complex. And one of the interesting things is SAP in January published a study that was conducted by Oxford Economics. Over 800 executives were asked about transformations and what do transformations really cost. And of course, the typical answers came like not completed on time, over budget, etc. But one interesting thing was that 42% of them said that they invested in the wrong technology. 42% of the executives that were interviewed said that they had invested in the wrong technology. And I hope for them that they found out quickly and not not after such a long period. Yeah. From my perspective, there is for big OEMs like those that you have been working with, but also other big companies. Um, the the key is the transparency in the sense of making visible to the employees what is requested from them and what the future should look like, and making visible the dependencies and the interdependencies. And when I say visible, I literally mean visible. So not just numbers in Excel, yeah, but really graphically showing interdependency, graphically showing how activities are done. Because this is when people start questioning themselves, why are we doing this in such a complicated manner? Yeah. Why do we have configurations that are used in only 0.05% of the cases, and they are very complex. Yeah. But I admit that, especially in these big problems, it can become projects, and changes. It can become huge. Yeah. But the good thing is we have today the technology at hand to get this visibility. Example, in the old days, not so old days, until 4 or 5 years ago, the big strategy consulting companies that you mentioned, yeah, they would come, they would send in some junior consultants. These junior consultants would start doing questionnaires and pulling data out of BW and putting it into some Excel and then putting it into pivot tables and into PowerPoint. And by the way it reached the board, it was already outdated. Yeah. And more importantly, the CEO would get this data, but the regional manager or the country manager would never get them. Yeah. Now we have the ability to give from the CEO to the lowest manager their own data in almost real time or in real time. But to show the interdependencies. And by doing this, I believe you can accelerate and simplify things. To be proven, there is anecdotal evidence for this. The downside is that you risk a little bit in dying in analysis paralysis, but that's again where the objective comes in handy. Yeah, when you can always ask yourself, the thing that I'm looking at now, does it support my company strategy? Yes or no? Yeah, this always helps.
So it's in a way good news that we are by far not at the end of this journey, and there's so much potential still waiting to come. Wassilios, when I would ask you what is opinion about transformation that you have that probably most other people would not be or would not have the same opinion like you? What is that?
You see, in change, some people change faster, some people change slower, yeah, or adopt change faster or accept change faster, and also the amplitude of wow, this is great, and oh my God, it will never happen, yeah, is of different strikes. I am very optimistic and very positive about the fact that companies can change, organizations can change, and that we have the right tools at hand. I've seen customers who, despite all my enthusiasm, thought that I was overselling. They rarely said it to my face, because if they said it to my face, I was able to to show and to convince. But I've had cases where ex post I learned that the person I talked to thought I was overselling. Yeah. Usually until the point where we do the first data extraction, and it is done within a day, and you get great results. But maybe it is about trying to acknowledging the difficulty and the complexity, and saying, yes, we can manage this in a reasonable amount of time with a reasonable amount of effort, by providing transparency. Yeah, and even those who are doubting, yeah, Johannes, your first questions at the very beginning will be convinced, yeah, and will be in.
So plenty of reasons also to be optimistic.
Yes, always, yeah, by nature.
Wassilios, lots of events are coming up. You've talked about your past weeks in Belgium and Italy. When people want to meet you, where can they do this in the next month? Will you be at Sapphire?
I will be at Sapphire in Orlando. I will be in South Africa at SAPILA, which is the South African User Group biannual event in June. I will be in Munich at the Financial Services event of SAP. That's the ones I can think of right now.
South Africa, Orlando, Munich, just the best places.
And Berlin, of course.
And Berlin. Of course.
And Berlin.
We're gonna see each other in South Africa, because I'm gonna be there as well, and Orlando as well. So I'm not gonna be in Munich though.
Excellent.
That's my job then. All right, thank you very much, Wassilios. It was mind-boggling again. Great to talk to you. Lots of food for thought. Looking forward to the next opportunity to speak with you. And I wish you to have a great day, and all the best luck with your endeavors.
Alex, Johannes, thank you very much. It was a pleasure again. And thanks for doing this. I mean, you're one of the big drivers here, and that's a great job. Yeah, great work. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. See you in South Africa.
See you in the plane to South Africa, probably.